Good morning and welcome to Farm Aid 2022. Woo! It is so wonderful, I think we all agree up here, to be on this stage together again. This is our first press event since 2019. I'm Jennifer Fahy, Farm Aid's Communications Director, and I'm honored to be on stage today with Farm Aid President Willie Nelson, Farm Aid Board artist John Mellencamp, Farm Aid Board artist Margo Price, and Farm Aid Board artist Dave Matthews. Please also welcome Carolyn Mugar, Farm Aid's Executive Director since 1985. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Shorlette Ammons to my right. Shorlette has been our program director since July. And we are so grateful to have her on the Farm Aid staff. She came into the Farm Aid family at our first show here in Raleigh in 2014, and now she's really officially family. Shorlette, can you share a few words?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. It's good to see everybody. Welcome to North Carolina, my home. I was born and raised in eastern North Carolina. Okay. Shout out to Botanicus, North Carolina. Family of tenant farmers. So grateful and so appreciative for all of you. You're the real VIP, so thank you for all you do. I also want to, and you also remind us of the significance of the connection to the land. And so I want to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are on here today, the ancestral land of many indigenous tribes, including the Tuscarora, the Siouan, the contemporary indigenous land of the Kahari, the Cherokee, the Haudenosaunee, the Lumbee, the Meherrin, the Occaneechi, the Sepoy, and the Waccamaw Siouan. Respect.
We are also privileged to have with us farmers and fishers from across the Southeast who are here to share how climate impacts their farms and operations and what they're doing to help themselves and all of us. So thank you all for being here. We also have members of those farm families in the front rows in front too, and we're glad you're all here today too. Thank you. Unprecedented spring wildfires, frosts in June, successive hailstorms, hurricane-force winds, unrelenting heat, and weeks of no rain. I'm seeing some nods out there in the audience. The farmers know it for real. This is not our climate future. This is our climate present. And farmers are on the front lines of this crisis. Extreme weather and increased unpredictability make what has been always a hard job even harder, exacerbated by climate change. At the same time, we have good news. Farmers know that they are key to mitigating climate change. They are caretakers of our precious soil. Did you know, for instance, healthy soil that's full of organic matter has an incredible capacity to take carbon out of the atmosphere and sequester it into the ground? It's amazing. But soil is extremely precious, and it takes 500 years to build just 1 inch of topsoil. Like always, like this morning, Willie was ahead of his time. You were talking about soil early on in Farm Aid's history. You were talking about the value of soil and how we need farmers to steward it. Can you share some thoughts on that, Willie?
Well, the farmers know how important it is to have good land, because the better the land, the more product you can have, and the more you can put in the bank every year, which is kind of what it's about. So I want to thank all you farmers out there who have done such a great job of feeding us over the years. Also thanking all the artists and everybody who's here helping us out today. It's great. We appreciate it very much. And the entertainers that are here. I forgot your name, but
It's only been 35
That's only been 35 years, that's all. You want to say something?
I am happy to be here today to support Farm Aid, and when Willie called me up in 1985, and he was 12 at the time, he just said. So you know what that made me, 11. So we have done this. I don't think any of us, Willie, myself, Neil, Dave, when all this started, that we would anticipate that we would still be doing this at this time. We were so naive at the time that we thought, well, we'll put this concert on and the government will hear us and make changes. And of course, that didn't happen. They made changes for corporate farming, which put the small farmer even farther behind the 8 ball. So I'm happy to still be here. I'm kind of unhappy that we have to be here, but we're here to support the family farmer.
Thank you. Thank you, John, and thank you, Willie. Shorlette,
Thank you.
can you bring us back to soil again? You know, Farm Aid is so much about the struggles that farmers have had and continue to have. And today we're talking about soil and climate, another major struggle they have. So bring us back to that second struggle, please.
Yep. Soil is truly just one piece of the climate puzzle. Family farmers have a tremendous capacity to decrease emissions and sequester carbon dioxide in the soil with practices like organic production, with cover crops, with rotational grazing, agroforestry, and so much more. The promise is right there, and it's really huge. Ag is the single largest type of land use here in the United States. It's half of the country's total land mass. Shifting the land into climate resilient ag offers us a tremendous opportunity to impact climate change.
So we're celebrating some good news today too. And I think we all know, we've seen young people are truly leading our climate movement, and that's true for young farmers as well. So I'd like to bring up Derrick Jackson from Grazed Farm here in North Carolina, and Ilana Richards from Levity Farms in Georgia. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We know it's hard to take time off your farm, and we're grateful for your presence.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I was in Special Operations, Army, and I was having some health problems. There was no answer to what the problem was. We discovered that the things that we were consuming were the issue.
We started going on this journey of visiting farms and seeing, like, hey, how are you doing this?
If we can't see the farm that it comes from, then we're not buying it. We're not going to eat it. When we decided that we were going to farm, the question came up is what type of farming will we do?
We wanted to be farmers that grew grass and farmers that could actually say, hey, we're focusing on the soil because that is what feeds us.
Climate change has affected our farm. The first year that we were on the farm, we had a really big tornado come through. We got a lot of water. I'm out there moving the hogs, and the storm comes in, and this water's coming. I just see the land just kind of washing down the hill. You just hope and pray that stuff just stays where it is.
You can look at an industrial farm versus a farm on a smaller scale that is working with nature. Our practices are not the same.
We don't use synthetic fertilizers, we don't use any pesticides, we don't use any herbicide. So as a regenerative farmer, I know that I can contribute in a positive way to climate by not using these products. And the only thing I'm using is animals. There's no machinery, it's just animals. Where you're letting chickens, pigs, cows operate in their natural habitat, and we're benefiting from it.
If you really want to make a change on finding real food, you need to get it from the source. So have a relationship with your farmer.
To be a farmer, you have to be able to adapt.
Our idea is to
build climate resiliency so that in the face of unpredictable weather patterns, we're able to maintain something grow with a lot of different methods, from high tunnels to landscape fabric covering the soil to different irrigation methods. And only a couple parts of the field are growing a certain crop at once. So if this is bad tomato weather, well, our squash is doing fine. Or if this is bad salad weather, well, our root vegetables are doing fine. A healthy and well-balanced soil food web, including organisms above, within, and below the surface of the soil, will result in healthy plants and healthy crops.
We implement a lot of permaculture techniques on the farm. You look at your surroundings and you have the mentality that everything affects everything else in a certain way. So you design your surroundings so that everything is benefiting each other thing to make everything better. This style of market farming on a small scale could heavily contribute to solving the climate issue that's facing us right now.
We are not only a product of our environment, but our environment is a product of us. If we are not thriving in this environment, the farm is not going to thrive.
Beautiful. Derrick, it was a pleasure to visit your farm with your lovely family. And you, in the film, you talk about the soil just washing away, and you did this while you showed us how it happened. So can you talk a little bit, we thought that was just so compelling. So can you talk about the urgency of this moment for farmers and our climate?
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for having us. When you said I did wash, because I was actually standing there, and the only thing I could do was hold the tree, because you're watching your topsoil or your soil just kind of flow away. But the importance is, I don't have to tell any farmer right now that that we're preparing for hurricane season, and every year since we've been farming, one of the things that we've waited for is hurricane season to see our labor and our good land stewardship pay off. And that is because, one, we'll see a couple of different things. We'll see our soil stay in place during hurricanes. We don't have those issues anymore. And we'll also see our hay bill is going to go down this year because of the way that we stewarded our animals this season, because we rotationally grazed our cows, sequestering carbon on our soil. Now, my hay bill, which was a little higher than expected last year, will be cut this year because we've been able to build up a lot more soil, which means I have more grass and that I can do. I was able to stockpile a little bit more grass this year, so we won't use as much hay. So it's important for us to. It's an important time, because of the cost of everything right now. I mean, those things don't change and they continue to go up. So our farming practices have to be intentional when it comes to the way that we steward our soil.
Thank you. Ilana, you and Zach are young farmers, and you're also raising some young farmers. What do you teach your daughter about agriculture and for caring about our soil and our water and our climate?
That's a really great question. Thank you. And of course, thanks for having us. We are first-generation farmers, so we are learning as we go, and we have children with us who are out in the field with us, and they are learning as we go as well. They are learning the value of walking outside into a field and looking at what's for dinner. And it is perfectly normal in their eyes for the food they're going to see the food they're going to eat while it's still in the ground. It's really important for children in particular to develop an understanding that taking care of the environment and taking care of the ecosystem around and including us is how we ensure stability and healthy food that's available for our whole community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dave, you were in a beautiful Billboard article last week talking about your belief that climate change has to be in every conversation we have. And I wonder, are you inspired to see so many farmers who are working to improve our climate and our soil for the next generation and beyond?
Yes, I have children. Any efforts to keep our planet healthy or move it in a more healthy direction seems like appropriate action to take. I think, although I don't want to dwell at all on negative things, I think it's important to mention, and there's certainly good farmers that are stuck in some practices that have been in some ways imposed on them over the last few decades with sort of modern technologies. But there's a general move, which I think is good. It's so inspiring listening to people talk about this sort of sustainable farming techniques that we're starting to see more and more of. And that is also carried on, even though somewhat in the shadows of big agribusiness farming, where we need to realize is that these sort of massive farming techniques that happen do the opposite. They pump carbon into the air. And I know I'm talking to people that understand that, but I think the public needs to know that this is pumping carbon into the air and sucking oxygen out of it. And so that kind of farming is so damaging. And then just to know that we have the technology and we have the knowledge to be able to turn that around and have plants do what they're supposed to do while they feed us, while we're being fed by all these magnificent farmers. We can also be feeding the earth and taking care of it, and that's a magical thing. But knowing we have the technology and knowing that the obstacle stopping us from employing that technology is greed. And so I feel like the obstacle that we all are up against in our fight to save the future for our children and our grandchildren is greedy people, and we have to be able to stand up together and say it. It's greedy people who think profit matters more than the earth and matters more than our children. And they can kiss my ass. Thank you to all the wonderful farmers. Sorry to be so bitter, but I do believe that farming is one of the things that can save us all. There's a lovely, hopeful film called Kiss the Ground, which you probably have seen, but everyone should go see that because it's also a great watch. It's not a boring documentary. It's full of hope, and it makes you go, I want to do something. Anyway, love the farmers. Thank you all so much for feeding us.
Thank you, Ilana and Derrick. Thanks for being here so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thank you.
At our first festival here in Raleigh in 2014, we showcased Carolina seafood in our homegrown concessions. And since then, every Farm Aid festival has always included seafood from community-based fishers. Fishers and farmers, this might be new to some of you, but fishers and farmers face many of the same challenges, including corporate power, increasing consolidation, and climate change. The connection between farmers and fishers is essential to the survival of both. And these connections have been getting stronger thanks in part to Farm Aid partners like the National Family Farm Coalition and the Northwest Atlantic Marine Alliance. And they're both here today. Catch them in the homegrown village. In our next film, we showcase the work and experiences of 2 Carolina fishermen, and one of them is here with us today. Please welcome Captain Charlie Abner from South Carolina. And let's watch the film.
Climate change happens, the whole ecosystem is from the mountains on down to the coast, and as things change up there, they change down here, and they change out in the ocean as well.
I've seen the weather have gotten worse, and that's when I started paying close attention to the climate change.
We're starting to see weather patterns become more robust and very intense sometimes when they do come through, and so with intensity of wind comes intensity of seas.
The larger vessels, they could go out and they can work through the storms, whereas the smaller vessels, we can't go out and work in the bad weather because they don't have the power to actually go out here in the deep water to catch products the way we normally would. They look at the solar caps. They're melting. We look at the tides. The tides are higher now than it was years ago, and it's going to continue that same track. And when you see that, it's going to have an effect somewhere, somehow.
I've seen some of the hottest ocean temperatures this last couple of years, and you know, it is sea surface temperature that we're seeing, but it is also affects the feed. If there's no feed, then the fish aren't going to stay on the grounds that they want to go and be at.
The seafood out there in the ocean, the fish, and shrimp, and all the others, they are instinctively wise. Water's too hot here. We got to go someplace else. And in essence, that's what they do. So we have to think along those same lines.
When we first started Abundant Seafood, one of the reasons why we did what we did, selling directly to the restaurants, is that our product was coming off the boat. They would be sold to a dealer. That dealer would then sell to the New York market or Canadian market. There was more travel time and emissions being wasted just to go and come back here. And so we wanted to go and minimize the amount of emissions it took to get the product to the plate. It's still exciting to me because you drop your line down, you're hunting once again, and anybody who's a hunter, you get that adrenaline rush of getting into the fish and catching the fish. You're harvesting them to go and feed the public, and that's important to me.
Nothing I love more than shrimping and being on the ocean. And so that's why I'm going to stick with it, and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
All right, Captain Charlie. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. There is another Carolina. It's this Carolina and South Carolina. So, despite all the challenges you see that shrimpers and fishers like yourself face, you're committed to passing this down, all these practices down to the next generation. What drives you? What keeps you inspired? What keeps you hopeful?
Well, seafood is one of the most healthiest foods that you can consume. A lot of the guys my age and older, they're either dying out or they are retiring, and they're fed up with the industry. And so it's my intentions, because I love seafood, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other people love seafood, so we would want to see that fresh product on the tables of every American there is. And so to keep the industry and to keep the profession going, I've cultivated and started a training program to train other young fishermen so that they could, well, to train them to become commercial fishermen to keep the profession going.
All right.
Thank you, Captain Charlie.
Welcome.
Thank you
So
so
glad,
much.
yeah, so glad to have people teaching the next generation. Many of the methods of climate-resilient agriculture come to us from native agricultural practices and also from traditions that have been passed down for generations. This next film features two farms who are keeping their ancestral traditions alive, paying tribute to their heritage and bringing their farms into the future. Please welcome Millard Locklear of New Ground Farms and Beverly Bowen of Blackwell's Farm, both here in North Carolina. And we'll take a look at the
Climate change is in the picture. We went probably 6 weeks, no rain whatsoever. If you look at the pastures, the green is not there. The pond level is down 18 to 24 inches. My sunflowers should be anywhere from 36 to 48 inches. They're just little short guys. We are dealing with extreme conditions when it comes to drought. You've got to be irrigating fields if you expect to get a crop. You've got to be resilient because you're going to have swings, and you've got to be able to weather all of the storms, from cover crops to seasonal grasses to no-till to limited till. It's been a matter of an educational process from what my parents did when they were here. If you're looking at the average farmer, you're looking at a lot of the minority farmers. They don't have the dollars to reinvest back in the farms to do climate-smart agriculture. And nobody's giving out money to do that. We do this out of a passion. It's a passion. It's about a legacy that our parents left behind. We're doing what is right for the environment.
Over the years, we've been trying to get back to the ways that the previous ancestors done by developing the microorganisms in that soil to the point that it would sustain itself. Most American Indians did not worry about shelf life. He grew to sustain him that week.
Growing up as a child, we raised our chickens, our hogs, we had our peas, corn, butter beans, everything we needed, we had it. You got food from the garden, food from the pasture, food from the chicken pen. People want easy, they want quick and easy, and life is not quick and easy.
One of the characteristics that I see in the community is diabetes, high blood pressure. So you're taking in chemicals that your body cannot function right with. Understand your food and tie in how much health aspect you want to tie to that food. Support them stores that supports the local people. You don't need to support, your money goes to a corporation that's halfway around the world. The money will never come back and develop the community.
When I put my hands in the soil, the physical and the spiritual connection to that soul goes to my soul. Because my body is anchored to this soil.
Hey, Miss Beverly.
Good morning.
Good morning. So after a successful career in corporate America, you came back home to the family farm. You describe it as a process of learning, and I know that you have continued that learning process, expanding your leadership. I see you as a mentor and guide for me. Beyond your farm, teaching new farmers, learning about the Farm Bill, and so much more. How much does climate change and the potential for your impact on it drive your ambition to keep on working and perhaps to work even harder than ever?
Very good question. I am from a multi-generational farming family. Going back, I am a sixth-generation farmer, going back to the late 1700s. I left my job in corporate America to return to a passion. As a farmer, it's in your DNA. It's about resilience. And based on the background of being on the farm as a child, it taught me what values, work ethics, and also it taught me how to look at the big picture of things as to where we are today as farmers, what it's going to take to keep farmers on their land and to be successful. It's about food sovereignty. It's about the equity and getting food to the stores. So again, when I returned to the farm, it was about innovation. It was not only about sustainability, it was about climate-smart agriculture with a focus on regenerative practices. I wanted to do what was right for the land. First and forefront, that was what was so important. And with that process, it has taken me to other levels to give back to the community, to be involved in organizations. And from that standpoint, that's what farmers need. They need direction. They need to get out of the old ways of doing things, especially with small to mid-sized farmers. If they are to be successful and to be successful long-term and to keep family farms active, they have to be involved. They have to be innovative.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Mr. Locklear, it's good to see you again. Thank you for having us on your beautiful farm. You and your wife make a good team. It seems like caring for your own health and the health of the soil are deeply connected, or at least have been when you look back at the ways of your ancestors. Can you share more about that with us, and how do they guide your work on New Ground Farms today?
Well, like you say, I actually sit on the seventh generation. I'm a Lumbee Indian from Robson County. Actually, there are 9 generations in that community. So I had seen the benefits of excellent health from I got to see my great-grandfathers, 2 of my greats, 3 of my great-grandmothers, and all my grandmas and grandpas and everything. They live on that land. And so the land is like Dave said, it's what feeds you, it's what sustains you. Getting food out of a tube ain't gonna do it, because your body's gonna reject it. So that's one thing that we try to do. I work with the Center of Environmental Farming to try to do the apprenticeships through the university systems, bring kids on the farm. Just like Beverly said, if you ain't passing that knowledge to somebody, you're failing somebody. And I work with the Salvation Army, different things that bring inner city kids out to the farm, let them taste what real food's like, and go with it, everything. But to put a perspective to Dave's comment a while ago about the greed, our government gives us $18.60 an acre to do cover crops. When I started back from corporation in 16, it cost me $24 an acre to put in a 10 variety cover crop. This year, it's $53 and some cent to do the same thing. So the greed of the corporations that supplies the seeds is what's causing the disruption, because you're actually going to see less cover crops the last 2 years than you'll see any time. Because nobody's going to pull $53. Just like Beverly said, you ain't going to go there and pull $53 on something that's going to take years to see a return from it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both.
Margo, your family carried on the farming tradition as well for generations. How did your upbringing influence the values you carry with you every day about agriculture and the care for our precious resources of soil, water, and food?
Well, first I have to say hello to my grandmother, Mary Price. I want to get that out of the way because she's my only surviving grandparent. She wanted me to say hello today. And, you know, my family lost their farm back in the mid-1980s to greed. Went right when Farm Aid was being conceived. And so I kind of grew up with that absence, you know, and really growing up in the 1980s, 1990s in rural America. Of course, my dad, he was a hunter, and we, you know, had a lot of quail, a lot of pheasant. We lived off of venison, and he still hunts and does that today. But growing up in the 1980s and 1990s, there really was, you know, it was kind of a food desert. And so even though we were surrounded by farmland, I didn't always have access to healthy food like we do today. And, you know, with my children, I just try to teach them that there's another way that we can be doing it. And the average consumer may not feel very powerful, but every time that you scan food at the supermarket, you are voting. You are voting for local, you are voting for not local, you are voting for organic or not organic. And, you know, I think there's power in our dollar. There's power in where we put our money, and we have to start supporting local. And if Neil was here, he would say, if you see a farmer's market, stop and pull over and support. So that is what I'm trying to do.
Thank you. Climate resilience takes into account the many values that we need to ensure a vibrant farm and food system that cares for our farmers, our neighbors, our communities, especially those who have been historically and currently underserved. Unfortunately, the farmers featured in our last film, Christina and Decton Hilton of Iron Lion Farm in Georgia, can't be with us here today, but we are so honored to have their voices with us on film. And we'll take a look now at that film. Just a second.
We consider ourselves like pioneers of the land. So coming to reclaim environmental heritage, connection with the land, and how to do that without being able to access credit. But when I talk about regenerative agriculture, certainly the land stewardship practices are important. Just as important are the cultural values. And when I think of that, I think about renewing, again, our ancestral ways of communing with the natural environment.
We have grown things for farmers market and the local cooperative. We are trying to promote beekeeping as income and as sustainability in terms of pollination of crops. The question of climate change and the way how it is right now is based on a lot of greed and capitalism. So it's not giving back, it's just taking. That creates an imbalance, not promoting enough alternative energy sources, not planting enough trees, and not really caring for the natural resources. If we really want to solve the problem of climate change, we can solve it because we have the resources. The issue is the unequal distribution of the resources as it relates to, say, agriculture. It's very hard for people of color to get the access for loans and grants to implement the things that are necessary to make the change.
Small farmers is very difficult business, right? And such a very important part of our nation's food system. Advocating for good policies, for access to funding, access to credit, for more equitable resources.
Part of the vision of the farm is focus on the youth, black young people, to get into farming, getting to overcome the negative propaganda about slavery as it relates to farming, so that they can produce food for themselves and their families, and appreciate farming as a career and as a way to move forward.
I hope that our future generations will benefit from our hard work.
Shorlette, can you share with us your thoughts about the cultural stewardship that Christina and Decton spoke about in the film?
I think it connects to this question about greed, and they talked about it in the film, the ability to not give back. So to me, culture is about this exchange, these things that we share with one another. It's by way of stories, it's by way of ideas, innovation, tradition, and just ways that are just innate to all of us. And so if we're not doing those things, then we're not expressing the culture of who we are. And what better way to do that than this exchange that we have between each other as farmers, as people who love and appreciate the farming traditions that we all come from. So I think that's critical.
Thank you. Another thing that Christina spoke so beautifully about in that film is the reality that farmers can't shoulder this work to mitigate climate change alone. They need our support. They need the support from our institutions, federal government, state government, local government. They need that help to make the changes on their farms that will contribute to climate solutions.
Right on. So next, I'd like to introduce you to my brother from another. This is Michael Stewart Foley, up here to tell us about an effort that is just launching to bring farmer voices to the forefront of climate change. Michael is Farm Aid's new Director of Cultural Impact, with a deep history of organizing. Michael, please tell us what these farmers are up to.
All right, you mind if I stand up? It's kind of a big deal. I've got kind of a save the date announcement for you. Our longtime partners, NSAC, who most of you know, the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, have asked us to announce today plans for a major farmer mobilization in Washington for the week of March 6th, 2023. A mobilization the likes of which we have not seen since the 1970s. It's tentatively called Farmers for Climate, a rally for resilience, and I should point out that in the planning meetings, this has been the result of a coalition of 35 farm, food, climate, social justice organizations that are actively working on this. As we've witnessed all morning, hearing farmers' voices, hearing farmers' stories is incredibly moving, incredibly powerful, and incredibly valuable. Farm Aid, of course, hears farmers' voices practically every day, all year long. But what we need is for the Congress to hear those voices, to hear these stories. It's especially critical now because the Congress is starting to draft the next farm bill. Congress needs to get the message that farmers are counting on a farm bill that delivers climate solutions that center racial justice, that address on-farm climate challenges, and prioritize what works for family farmers. So, to make sure that Congress gets this message, farmers are going to deliver it in person. Peacefully, I might add. Over 3 days, the week of March 6th, 2023, farmers are going to march, and we will be there with them. They will rally, and we will be there with them. There will be music. We hope some of the artists who come to Farm Aid every year will join us. Farmers will go to Capitol Hill and meet with their congressional representatives and invite them to climate-friendly agricultural demonstrations on the nation's capital. Like, imagine a bunch of congressmen and senators being invited to a rotational grazing demonstration in the middle of Washington, D.C. That's what we're thinking. So in the coming weeks, more details will be available on our website, on NSAC's website at farmaid.org. But mark your calendars for the week of March 6th, 2023. We hope you will be able to join us. We hope that all of you watching at home will be able to join us. We hope the whole Farm Aid nation will come to Washington and support the voices of farmers and get us the farm bill that we all deserve. Thank you.
And while we're still standing, Michael mentioned the last farmer mobilization to DC in the 70s, and a man who was absolutely critical to that effort is standing right there, David Center. Thank you, David. Today's farmers and activists and advocates stand on your shoulders. John, you didn't think we forgot about you, did you? Good. You are one who has been advocating alongside farmers for decades. How do you feel hearing this news and seeing that standing ovation of support for farmers advocating for change and coming together in support of something as important as climate change?
Slowly but surely, this country changes by the men that we admire. And that's what's happened. A long time ago, Willie and I went to speak in front of the Senate subcommittee. You remember this, Willie? I was under the impression that they would all be there and all be interested. So Willie and I made the effort to go there, and we're sitting there, and as we're talking, some are getting up, leaving, and finally one of the guys said, "Where's your guys' guitars?" And I looked at Nelson, and excuse my language, I said, "Fuck these guys, let's get out of here." And that's what happened. So I knew at that point that the government the reason they're asking me this, because I'll say it, they don't give a fuck about us. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about anything but profit and, like Dave said, greed. That's what the fuck it's all about. So that is really our challenge. So when I've dealt with a lot of politicians, and when they want something from you, they're all over you. You try to get them to do anything for you, you can't talk to them. That's the way. They have a club that they beat us over the head with every day of our lives, and we believe them. It's bullshit. So it's going to take people, good people like you, like everybody that's up here, to do. I'm going to come to Washington, D.C. Because politics today in the United States has got so far out of hand. The last good president we had was Jimmy Carter, and other than that, I don't know what the fuck happened.
Thank you, John. So now we know you all are coming to Washington, D.C. to be with the farmers and John Mellencamp.
Yeah, if you don't come, I'll find you, and we'll get a school bus, and we'll all get on and go together, okay?
We'll have a sign-up sheet on the Farm Aid website tonight. Carolyn, we've heard from our incredible board artists today, and I just want to mention, we love to have all of the artists on stage. With COVID these days, we're taking extra precaution, and that's why you see a smaller group of artists on stage here with us today. But there are incredible artists here today and through Farm Aid's long 37 years, long in the best possible way. You've been able to meet so many of these artists who donate their time and talent to strengthen family farmers. What does that mean to you and to Farm Aid?
You know, I know all the board artists up here today want to thank so much the other artists that are playing this week. So I want to thank them by name here, because their generosity and spirit makes it possible for us to do what we do every day, and it makes it possible for us to support family farmers, and their spirit travels all across the country. I know it does. So I'd like to call out the people that are playing here today and thank them so much. The Red Clay Singers. If you're here and you want to give a wave, that's really nice. The Wisdom Indian Dancers. Give a shout. Particle Kid. Brittany Spencer. Charlie Crockett. Allison Russell. Cheryl Crow. and Lucas Nelson, who I know is coming later with Promise of the Real, and Chris Stapleton. Is he here? And David Amram in our front row, I think. Always with us. And we want to wish good health to Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, who couldn't be here because of health problems. We all know it takes a village to make the changes we're all inspired and required to make. On Thursday, Farm Aid was able to bring together a gathering here in Raleigh on agriculture, equity, and climate. We were able to gather all the layers of people that it takes to get this done. They include farmers, artists, advocates, activists, policymakers, media, and all of us who eat, even a few policymakers, even a few elected officials, John. The good news is we're all here together today. Stand up again if you plan to be part of this movement and if you plan to try to get to Washington or send someone to Washington. Take a deep breath, start getting your appetite up and your energy up. And we're not gonna sit until Farm Aid will not stop until everybody is standing with family farmers, okay? We certainly wanna give thanks to these artists, because that is the heartbeat of Farm Aid, and especially Willie. All of us, I know we all wanna thank Willie especially. I sure do.
Thank you all. I know Carolyn said we won't sit, but we can. But it doesn't mean we're stopping. Thank you all. This is so inspiring. The voices of the farmers we are hearing from now, that we will hear from throughout the day, they represent farmers across the U.S. and across the world who are working so hard to overcome the constant challenges that they face so they can continue to provide for their families and our families. It's time for us to all do our part to secure a future for family farming, and I think we're all committed to that today. Shorlette, can you help us out with some of the ways we can do that?
Yep. In addition to the climate action that we just talked about that apparently we're all showing up for, there are 3 things we can also do. Meet farmers. Support them directly today, not just today, but throughout. As soon as we leave this place, continue to support farmers. Number 2, learn about the policies and the programs that enable a strong farm and food system, and then advocate for them, and then take another step and vote for them. And finally, you can support Farm Aid. We invite you to become year-round supporters at farmaid.org. Today's our biggest day of the year. I hope y'all are excited to be here, as excited as I am to be here. But the work to strengthen the family farm and agriculture happens every day of the year, and it relies on all of us, all of our participation, and all of our support.
Thank you. I think we are all fueled for the work we have ahead of us. I do also just want to send us out with one more little piece of inspiration. Last night I had the opportunity to talk to a farmer friend of ours who we met in Nashville at a show honoring Willie Nelson. And she's an Indiana dairy farmer. And she's losing her farm. And she's here with us today, hoping to carry home with her some of the joy from this community. And she is strong. She told me, I'm a 50-cow dairy. I know the 100-cow dairies are next, and I'm not stopping. I'm gonna fight for them, and I'm gonna keep doing this work. It's what I'm meant to do. So these are the people that Farm Aid is here for, that all of you are here for. And farmers are grateful, and all of us here on stage are grateful. Thank you. So just a couple reminders. Please enjoy your day. Enjoy our homegrown concessions. It's the best food you'll have. All of the food here today is sourced from family farmers, grown with an ecological standard. The farmer receives a fair price. It's amazing. Make sure you don't miss it. Visit the Homegrown Village. Engage with the folks there. Get your hands in the dirt. Make compost. Have a lot of fun. Meet the farmers. They're wearing farmer credentials. You can spot them. Say hello and thanks. And farmers are the key to climate solutions on their farms and for all of us. So we're grateful for your support. Thanks all. Have a great day.